Okay, I guess people can hear me. Okay, so as you can see from my title card, I am reviewing, as I said on Twitter, Captain Marvel. Excuse me. Anyway, before I get into the review, I just want to say that I was going to post this about like 3.5 hours from now, but I kind of figured that I might as well do something because I didn't have a whole lot to do or a whole lot to worry about in the immediate future, so I kind of figured screw it and just worked on this thing right now. So I think the first thing I might want to address about this movie is some of the buzz it's been getting. Aside from the critical praise of the movie, it seems like people have already decided to hate the film because they feel it has blatant feminist ideals, and to piggyback off of that, in your face feminism, and the fact that Brie Larson apparently hates white people. And for the people who are complaining about this movie being hit you over the head with girl power, were we watching the same movie? Because I didn't really get the sense of that. And for Brie Larson's who plays the title character, her stance on white men. I think from what I've read, she was saying she would have preferred seeing critics praise or tear her movies apart if they were different races. She just kind of felt like that the critics were a little too white and male. She would have preferred white men with someone who is of Asian, African American. She was just looking for more diversity. So not really the same thing as what they're saying. And I'm just gonna say this: if you're gonna go into this movie thinking of those controversies, then your mind's already been poisoned when you're trying to analyze this film. To get into the movie now, the movie is kind of reminds me of Bourne Identity, where you have a main character who doesn't really remember their past, but then as the movie progresses, sorry guys. I just had this loose hair that was like right here and I was trying to smack it off, but anyway. So it reminded me of Bourne Identity because the main character in this movie, has to figure out who she really is because her mind is kind of fragmented into these puzzle pieces that she's never quite able to put together at the time the movie begins. And so Brie Larson plays a warrior who, through some mistake in the middle of a battle, ends up on Earth. And the rest of the movie is her trying to save the Earth and a scientist she's seeing in her head from the villains of the piece. The problem is, the people she thought she was fighting against might actually be more innocent than she figured. And if I were to say anything else about the plot of this movie, you might as well not even watch it because I would have spoiled the whole thing. So one of the biggest strength of this movie is the writing, the dialogue, and how the actors and actresses bounce off with the dialogue. There are a lot of scenes with Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson where they kind of have this professional friendship where there's a lot of jabs back and forth where they're being wise asses to each other, but you never get the sense that they're being insulting. They're just kind of, playfully sarcastic while they're trying to take care of the threat or try to find ways to defeat said threat. And a lot of the relationships, they do get really sweet too. There's a point at the end where this is a spoiler, but it's not going to train wreck the whole movie. But there gets to a point where Brie Larson realizes who she really was, and she runs into her old best friend, who's also a single mom, and her friend has a daughter who sees Brie Larson's character as Aunt Carol because Carol Danvers, Brie Larson's character, and I believe her friend is named Monica Rambeau, who's also a African American. So there's kind of this very sweet biracial sisterly kind of friendship to the point where the daughter of Brie Larson's friend sees her as an aunt because they basically did everything together, and they're also were both in the military, so they were kind of the biracial female equivalent of Maverick and Goose. And by the way, there is a cat named Goose that's all red fur in this movie, so I was thinking of Anthony Edwards in Top Gun with that cat. But yeah, it is really sweet, and it seems like, as I said with Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson, the chemistry between them, it's the same with every other character. Every character has a quippy one-liner or a quippy comeback. You know, there's a lot of sharp writing and a lot of sharp dialogue. And I also like how the people that you swore were the enemies turn out to be more on the benevolent side, and then you really start questioning, are these guys telling the truth, or are they going to pull the rug out from underneath their feet and say, psych, we were actually evil, you morons? But the movie never goes quite for the double twist. It goes for the one twist and then works with that. So that was a pretty good, that was a good choice on their part. So it was fairly well done. I do feel like at this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're trying to introduce new characters to take over the reins from the older cast members. I mean, I'm sure Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth are probably still going to be around for a while because they're like in their early 30s. Robert Downey Jr. at this point is 54 years old, so I'm not sure how much more of this he's going to be able to take, depending on what happens in Endgame. So anyway, I think one thing I would say about the movie, my one major complaint with the movie, and this is kind of this is going to sound really petty and cliched for me to say, but as good as some of the effects look in this movie, I think I would have appreciated it more if he went for more practical effects. And I understand when you're doing a comic book movie, you kind of have to go the CGI route to create some amazing otherworldly spectacles on screen. But there are a few plane crash scenes in this movie that I felt could have benefited from being used as models. I mean, you can't actually crash a real plane and expect your performer to come out okay. That would be beyond reckless. I understand that, but I feel like they could have done more different types of effects to fool the eye, because there's so much CGI in the film that even an average moviegoer would be able to spot it. But that doesn't really detract from the movie. I think it's a really good film, and I'm very interested in seeing where Captain Marvel goes on from here. And apparently she's going to be in the new Avengers movie, so it'll be interesting to see her, you know, get all sassy with some of the other characters in the movie, because you know it is a lot of fun. That's kind of her charm, is that she is kind of a smart ass, but even though her weakness is that she can get emotional, she can use that reckless emotion and turn it into something that can easily defeat the bad guys. So that's one of the best things about Brie Larson in this movie. She's strong but vulnerable. And those are the kind of characters that are great. You know, they can be strong, tough, but they still have a heart. That was one of the reasons why I didn't like Black Widow for so long, is that she was a badass, but she just seemed like a robot in the shape of a human that was meant to kick butt. Here we have a strong female lead. She's total badass, not emotionless, very charismatic, great sense of humor, nice snappy dialogue, great superhero. And this is probably one of the better superhero movies I've seen so far this year. But then again, we got Spider-Man Far From Home, or Academy or whatever, and then we got the Avengers movie, we got Shazam, so there's plenty of superhero to go around. So overall, I think this was a very solid movie, and I highly recommend seeing it. I'm not sure if I'd see it again in the theater, but I certainly wouldn't mind seeing it again at a friend's house. So, well, that's my review, and I will keep you guys